Welcome to the Varato podcast. Today we have the honor of having Paul Lavoie on the podcast, the Chief Manufacturing Officer of the state of Connecticut. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you, Matt. It's great to be here.
Great to have you. So I curious to know that we are the only state, as far as I know, with a Chief Manufacturing Officer, which is pretty freaking cool, if you ask me. So tell me, how did that come to be, and how did you get into this role?
Sure, absolutely. So, Connecticut has a long history of supporting manufacturing, and I'll give you the historical process that led to this job. But in 2012, Connecticut was the first state to have a bipartisan manufacturing caucus. Both sides of the aisle came together and said, hey, let's support manufacturing. In 2015, that caucus created the Manufacturing Innovation Fund. Manufacturing Innovation Fund is a fund that's used to support small and medium-sized businesses here in the state. Since 2015, we've invested $135 million in smaller manufacturers. In 2017, all of the manufacturing associations in the state got together and created the Connecticut Manufacturing Collaborative, called the CMC. And the CMC began lobbying the legislature to create a position in the state of Connecticut at the highest levels of government to support manufacturing. In 2018, the legislature put into a bill to create a director of manufacturing within the state of Connecticut. That bill never made it to the floor, so it never actually got enacted. But what they did was they put a line in the implementer, which is the budget for the state. They threw a line in there to create a manufacturing growth initiative and put a dollar number next to that. And what they basically said to the governor was, go ahead and do with that what you'd like to support the manufacturing sector. So the governor created the Chief Manufacturing Officer position. You are correct, Matt. This is the only state that has this role. I'm appointed by the governor, and the position was created in October of 2019. And Colin Cooper was Connecticut's first Chief Manufacturing Officer. Colin was in the process of selling his businesses. He had sold his businesses, was looking to retire, and the governor asked him to serve as the first Chief Manufacturing Officer. Colin gave a 2-year commitment to the governor. As Colin likes to say, he didn't want to fail at retiring twice. So he gave a 2-year commitment to the governor. And so in October of 2021, Colin began a search for the next Chief Manufacturing Officer in the state of Connecticut. I, at the time, was working as the general manager at Carey Manufacturing, which is a manufacturer in Cromwell, Connecticut. And one of the requirements to have this role is you had to have run a manufacturing business in the state of Connecticut. I was executing a succession plan for the owner of Carey Manufacturing, and the timing was perfect for me to be considered for this role. So I was appointed by Governor Ned Lamont as Connecticut's second Chief Manufacturing Officer in February of 2022.
Awesome. That's amazing. And I think for people listening to this podcast, an interesting fact that a lot of people don't know that if they're not from Connecticut, and even people in Connecticut, is I would say we punch above our weight when it comes to manufacturing. And what I read is there's actually 4,000 manufacturers in Connecticut. Do I have that right?
Yeah, actually, there's 4,800 manufacturers in 5,445 square miles. So, Matt, you swing a wiffle ball bat, invented and made in Connecticut, you're going to hit a manufacturer. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then we've also got some big players, but we also have a lot of small manufacturers that do their own work, but also feed into that supply chain to the big manufacturers. And I think because everything's pretty close together, I would guess that gives us some strategic advantage in terms of efficiency.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're number one in America in aircraft engine and airplane parts manufacturing. Now, remember, we're the 48th largest state, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
that's great. Let's go.
We do punch well above our weight class. But we're number one in aircraft engine and airplane parts manufacturing. We're number 2 in the country in shipbuilding. We're number 4 in the country in defense spending for programs, meaning for manufacturing. Number 4, behind California, Texas, Virginia, and then there comes Connecticut. And that's raw dollar spending. So, when you consider that 49 Connecticut's can fit inside of Texas, and there's still room for Rhode Island, by the way, we're pretty much a manufacturing powerhouse as it relates to the defense industry, but also so many other industries, medical device industry, food manufacturing is absolutely growing crazily here in Connecticut. We have the world's largest non-alcoholic brewing facility and the world's largest organic snack factory right here in Connecticut as well. And so the manufacturing community is diverse, and it is. It's we're 13% of the state's economy, and that's up from 10% 3 years ago. Manufacturing's grown by $3 billion over the last 3 years since February of 2022.
And I'm seeing some global trends, despite the tariffs and everything that's been happening recently. I think the reshoring trend's been going on for quite a while now. And I from a lot of the manufacturers I've talked to, they think, particularly the ones that are aggressive about their growth strategies and their digital transformation strategies and getting current on their technologies, they're seeing an upside, a lot of optimism out there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You take a look at where Connecticut's strengths are. The aerospace industry, both commercial and military, are on the upswing. Shipbuilding is the nation's number one priority. So submarines and building submarines, we're the submarine capital of the world. And so that's important as well. But we're seeing again, great, as I go across the state and visit with manufacturers and talk to them, I'm hearing stories all the time of, I have work, I have backlog, things are healthy. I need to grow my team. I need to grow with innovation. So we see a real environment of growth right here in the state of Connecticut as it relates to manufacturing across all sectors, not just defense, but all sectors.
That's great. This might be a good time to pivot into your strategic plan 3.0, because I know that you have main components of that. And I think training and recruitment is part of that, which might help fill some of those needs for these companies to scale. You want to get into that and explain what that plan entails?
Sure. So we released Connecticut's version 3.0 of Connecticut's Manufacturing Strategic Plan on May 15th. It is a plan that is built on 4 components. So we're manufacturers' components to make a plan. The first one is developing talent. The second is building resilient companies. The third is driving innovation. And the fourth is improving collaboration. And when we talk about developing talent, Matt, we don't say workforce, because we have an Office of Workforce Strategy and we have a Chief Workforce Officer, and we have all kinds of workforce programs. We've got a manufacturing pipeline initiative. We have workforce boards. We have all of that. And so we're well covered as it relates to, hey, I'm of age, I want a job. How can I get a job? When we look at developing talent, we're working on things like inspiring the next generation of manufacturing workers. The workforce that Electric Boat needs to work on the backlog that they have is currently in the 3rd grade. So I need to be inspiring these young people to consider careers in STEM, to consider careers in the manufacturing sector, because I think, as we all know, we've spent generations undoing that and saying, go to college, don't go into the trades, don't go and work in manufacturing. And listen, I'm not anti-college in any way, shape, or form. I'm a first-generation high school graduate who now has a college degree. So I am very much pro-college, and trust me, I put 4 kids through college. But there's a time and a place for it. And I think there's a lot of kids out there that going into the workforce makes sense today, and then going back to college makes sense later. And I think our educational institutions need to understand that and need to be adaptable to that. So we're looking at how we inspire that next generation. How do we reach out to underserved groups like veterans, getting veterans involved in manufacturing, getting second chance workers involved in manufacturing, neurodiverse workers, women, people of color, all underserved areas where we can provide life-changing careers. These jobs in manufacturing break generations of poverty for young people. And then also, we're looking at training and upskilling existing workforces. So those are the areas when we talk about developing talent we're focused on. Matt, I'll give you an example. This is amazing outcome. We fund FIRST Robotics on a statewide basis. We also fund VEX Robotics. We want every kid in the state of Connecticut to have an opportunity to participate in a robotics program. Matt, this year we sent 7 teams to nationals. Of those 7 teams that went, 4 of those teams came from an Alliance district. Alliance is an underserved community, right? It's a community that historically has an underserved population. 4 of those teams. 2 of those 4 teams would have gone defunct without our funding. They would have gone out of business. And one of those teams, one of those 4 in the Alliance district, was a rookie team that didn't exist. So here we tapped into this underserved community of incredible talent. These young people are amazing. And because of this program, 3 of the 7 teams would not have existed. And they went on 4 of those 7 teams were from areas that are generally underserved. So we're having a tremendous impact on kids all across the state and building that workforce for the future. So when they go through high school and they go through college and they want a job, there'll be a job for them here in the state of Connecticut.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a great story. That's amazing. It makes me think. I'm glad you guys are focused on youth too. I think that's so important. Coming from a digitally native, I started my career 30 years ago, and I got right into the internet and building websites and databases and all that stuff early. And my family are manufacturers, so I came from both my grandfathers owned manufacturing companies, and I always felt like I was missing out. Like I really wanted to build things, physical things that I could touch with my hands. I was just at a manufacturing facility yesterday, and we went back to the factory floor, and I was just in awe. You come in with just a bunch of raw materials and you end up with a part. It's such a cool process. So I feel like one of the struggles or one of the challenges is let's make manufacturing cool, because it is cool, right? I think it's very interesting. And the other thing is I know that the initiative is to grow the workforce or the talent, let's say, for the manufacturers. But I think if we combine that with technology and automation and robotics, those are going to become highly sought after opportunities for employment. And those are going to be well-paying jobs as well as we move into the future. So I think it's something that people shouldn't disregard. I think manufacturing is a great field to go into.
You are spot on, Matt. We're never going to hire our way out of our problem as it relates to staffing. There's never going to be enough people. I mean, if you look at all of the population numbers, and this is not a Connecticut problem, it's a global problem. Right? There are going to be open jobs. And the only way we're going to drive manufacturing forward is if we drive innovation in the manufacturing sector. And again, that's the third component of the manufacturing strategic plan, and is really to drive innovation to be able to improve efficiency, improve productivity, more importantly, to get machines to do the work for people we're never going to have. Not a job replacement strategy, not a job elimination strategy at all in any way, shape, or form. It is absolutely a way that we can upskill and reskill an existing workforce to get machines to do the work that, quite frankly, is not interesting work. And we can get people to do more interesting work and to work more with robotics, work more with automation, work more on the digital transformation, to work more in additive manufacturing. And then also AI, and using AI as a tool on the shop floor to improve that productivity and improve that efficiency. And you're spot on. A kid coming out of college today, a kid coming out of high school going into college is a wired kid. These kids are wired in. They understand technology. They know technology. And if we're going to go drop them into a manufacturing facility where they're using manual lathes and manual machines and drill presses and things like that, it's not going to meet their needs. And so having these shops that meet the needs of the workforce that are coming in is essential, but it's also essential for survival in the manufacturing sector. We're just not going to survive unless we're innovating every single day. And our challenge is we have to innovate at the speed of relevancy while the speed of relevancy accelerates. And everything is getting done quicker and faster, and we've got to continue to push that envelope and innovate. And that's why the digital transformation is so important in the manufacturing sector as well. And it's one of the reasons why it's one of the key initiatives that my office is supporting through the Connecticut Center of Advanced Technology.
Yeah. And I also think there's a kind of a distributed effect to that knowledge. So like if one big business gets smarter, the companies that coming along with that big business also get smarter. There's a derivative growth, a kind of all ships rising aspect. And I think that's something that also might be to Connecticut's advantage, because we're kind of a close-knit community. So I think as we all grow, we'll grow together and get smarter as a community.
Yeah, very much so. And we have a very advanced workforce. I mean, that is our secret sauce is Connecticut's workforce. Governor says it all the time. Governor Ned Lamont, he says, listen, our secret sauce is the skills of our workforce. We have the most advanced workforce in the nation. And when you're looking at a state to drive innovation, why not go where the most advanced workforce is? And we've been like that for a while. I mean, we've really been very, very innovative and really working on driving productivity and efficiency in the manufacturing industry, especially on the shop floor.
Yeah. And I think that's been a necessity for survival for Connecticut.
Absolutely.
These other states have much bigger footprints. They can get, larger scale capacity. So we had to go niche. We had to go into specialization and high tech manufacturing. And now that need is growing, but we were there decades ago.
Yeah, well, in '80s and '90s, when we shipped all of the low value manufacturing to China for cost reasons, none of that really was retained here. A little bit of it, but not much. But what was left was the incredibly complex things like building nuclear submarines, right?
Mhm.
Making jet engines, making helicopters, medical devices that save people's lives every day. It's the things like that have stayed behind, and things that are mission critical for the United States. And we have a manufacturing company that provides 85% of the syringes and needles that are used in the USA medical system,
Yeah.
right here in Connecticut. I mean, things like that are just so important, so critical, can't be made anywhere else. And a lot of that stuff is being done here in Connecticut because it's highly automated and we have a really advanced workforce.
I think one of the things that we've learned in the last 10 years, and the hard way, was there was a cost of offshoring manufacturing, not in just our intellectual property, but national security concerns that we're seeing now. So I also think that the regulatory environment, the political environment, is also driving reshoring of manufacturing as well, and some of those concerns weren't as noticeable, I'd say, 10 years ago.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Listen, it makes sense. It makes sense to vertically integrate. It makes sense. We learned this in the pandemic. What we learned in the pandemic was our supply chains were fragile, that we were too dependent upon supply chains that were widely spread out. And when we couldn't get parts, things really shut down. I visited manufacturers in even 2022 where there were parts sitting on the shelf waiting for one component. And you don't get revenue until you ship these things. So it was a real problem. And so companies have really started, back before, 2021, 22, of really looking at how they can vertically integrate, and more importantly, how they can shorten their supply chain. And, we've been really proactive here in the state of Connecticut. We have Connect's Marketplace, which is a database for manufacturers that was created by manufacturers, where manufacturers can go in and search for somebody to be able to do that work locally for them. And then they can be found by other companies that are looking to shorten their supply chain. We have great stories here in the state of, one company was buying he's in Windsor, Connecticut, was buying stuff down in Texas, found a company in Bristol, Connecticut that could do the same thing. They started a relationship. Now they're doing all kinds of work together, and they're 20 miles apart, right? They can get back and forth to each other and things like that. So we're also the first state to announce a strategic supply chain initiative. And we just announced our first grant yesterday. And this is an incentive for companies to reshore production back into Connecticut. So we have programs in place to tariff-proof your business as it relates to the Strategic Supply Chain Initiative, accessing Connect's Marketplace, database, and the Manufacturing Innovation Fund, which is really used to support small to medium-sized manufacturers to buy new equipment, to train your workers, to really improve your capabilities and your capacity. So, Connecticut is taking a nation-leading position in bringing manufacturing back to Connecticut and making sure that we're protecting against tariff policies that are raising the cost for consumers in the U.S.
Right. So I read somewhere you said, if we can't measure it, we're not going to do it, which is you're a big proponent, I think, of your KPIs, right?
Absolutely.
I know that you have a 4% growth on employment. Do you have a way to measure output?
We do measure
manufacturing output.
I will tell you, Matt, I've changed that goal on a 4% growth in employment because there are no people. And so the goal has now changed to full employment in the manufacturing sector. Okay. And what that means with 4,800 manufacturers, that means about 4,500 open jobs. And we're at about 7,500 open jobs, down from 10,000. Because we're not going to grow jobs. The story of manufacturing is not about job growth. The story of manufacturing is really about how do we measure output, and how do we measure the output that's happening within the ecosystem with the existing labor force that we have, which is really a productivity measure. And we measure GDP growth in the manufacturing sector. We've grown by $3 billion since 2022 in the manufacturing sector. So it's taken Connecticut from 10% of Connecticut's GDP to 13% of the GDP. My goal is to get to 20%. So the programs that we've enacted are taking us well along that goal of getting to the 20% GDP rate and to get to full employment in the manufacturing sector.
That's awesome. So one more thing, and I won't take up too much more of your time, but I have a question. Of the 4,800 manufacturers in Connecticut, I'm assuming 90% of them are less than 100 people.
Yeah, so there's 160,000 people that work in manufacturing in those 4,800 manufacturers. If you consider that 60,000 of those people work in the top 25 companies, there's 4,775 manufacturers with 100,000 people. That puts the average at about 22 people.
22.
Yeah. So the data, and not only will the data suggest, I see it all over the place. Your average manufacturer, 20 to 30 people, this gives you a great idea. Yesterday, I was at Trump in Farmington, who has their U.S. operation here. Trump is a $5.5 billion company with 19,000 associates across the globe, about 700 here in Connecticut, because this is their North American headquarters. And then I left there and went to a company that has 2 people. 2 guys went and started a manufacturing business. And that's my life, but that's Connecticut's manufacturing. And I'm here to support either one of them equally. But there's a lot of smaller manufacturers out there that and these are what our programs are designed for. If you're a manufacturer under 100 employees in the state of Connecticut, you have access to over $300,000 in non-dilutive matching grant funding to grow your business.
Yeah.
No other state is offering that for their manufacturing sector.
Yeah, I know. And I think we should repeat that, because I think a lot of manufacturers don't know that yet. I know you're getting the good word out because I see you everywhere, every day. I don't know of anyone who's traveled around Connecticut more than you have over the last year, but it's an impressive output of work and effort on your side. So I really appreciate that effort.
Thank you. I just completed tour number 358 yesterday. So since February 2022, I've toured 358 manufacturing facilities.
Well, we're honored that you carved out some time for us. So I really appreciate it.
It's great. This is great. I love getting the word out about Connecticut manufacturing, and love getting the word out to manufacturers about the way the Office of Manufacturing supports them. All 4,800 manufacturers in the state are my customers, and we're here to support them. We're here to help them grow. We're here to deliver programs for them that are going to make them have the ability to continue to grow and provide great jobs for their workers, and to continue to inspire people to consider careers in manufacturing as well.
That's awesome. And so one more thing, with the 4,800 manufacturers, obviously there's some big players. There's obviously a lot of small ones, which you just said, the average size is 25. The engagement with those companies in terms of helping them or digitally transforming is very different if you're a huge company than a small company. And we're trying to focus on some of the mid-market to small companies with what we're doing, because we feel like the big ones, they already have their teams of consultants. They already done their research. They have their data. What would you say to the smaller manufacturers in Connecticut? What are a few tips you'd give them to advance their manufacturing processes and to learn and grow?
Yeah, so we have a 3-step process that we like to bring manufacturers through. The first is to engage, right? Engage with the Office of Manufacturing, engage with CCAT, to be able to understand what journey you should be going on as it relates to innovation and how the state can support you. So engagement is really important. Matt, you brought up, I would estimate that 75% of those manufacturers in the state of Connecticut don't know I exist, because every day I run into somebody who said, I didn't know we had a chief manufacturing officer. And so increasing engagement is a key initiative for my office in 2025. And we're working on that. We're working on outreach to all the manufacturers to let them know that they should be going on this journey, but more importantly, the state of Connecticut is here to support them along that journey. The second piece is education, is to become educated, to learn more, to visit companies that have already gone on these journeys. We have companies that are fully digital right now. We have companies that have adopted additive. And if they're non-competitive, they're always open to sharing and to go, having people come and visit them as well. But the Connecticut Center for Advanced Technology is there. Constep is there. Both organizations are there to support you along these journeys. So get educated. Go to the digital thread training that is offered at CCAT. Every Tuesday, they have a beginner's class that you can bring your whole team to. $50 a seat, I think. It's ridiculously inexpensive to be able to do this. And then the third piece is my piece, which is enablement. How do we enable people to be able to adopt this technology? How do we remove the barriers? And that's why we have grant programs in place that will allow companies to tap into funding matching grant funding to be able to go on the journey. So $25,000 grant for digital transformation, $25,000 grant for additive manufacturing, $100,000 grants for the purchase of equipment, $100,000 grants for training of your existing employees. All of these programs are administered by the Connecticut Center for Advanced Technology, and they're available to all manufacturers under 100 employees. And so if you're a small manufacturer out there and you're saying, gosh, I really need to get more involved with figuring out where my company is going, those are the things I do. Engage. First off, get engaged. Go visit CCAT. Go talk to them. Go understand what it is that they provide. Go ahead and take their training and get educated, and then look at the programs we have in place to enable them. And I'll tell you, Matt, the companies that are doing it today are the companies that are going to grow 5-fold and 10-fold over the next 5 to 10 years. And the companies that aren't are going to be seeing contracts pulled away from them from larger manufacturers and larger OEMs, and they're not going to understand why. Because buyers aren't going to say, hey, we're pulling the work away from you because you're not digitally enabled. They're just going to pull the work away. And so, there's going to be some Darwinism in the manufacturing supply chain, meaning the survival of the fittest if there are companies out there that don't go on these journeys. And that's, my office is here to support every single manufacturer in the state. And so if they're ready to go on the journey, we're here to support them. We're here to make sure they have the tools that they need to be successful. All they have to do is raise their hand and reach out, and we're here to help.
Yeah, another thing I'm seeing from my perspective is a lot of businesses that have a new generation of leadership moving in. You have a lot of baby boomer generations that have been at the helm for 20, 30, 40 years, and their kids are moving in to it. And I think it's getting those kids engaged early might be the key to saving those businesses. They're the ones that want to innovate. They probably see the need to innovate more than the older generation. And that I get really excited about that when I see some of these older companies get taken over by a newer generation of leadership.
Yeah, and that's happening all across the state. There are multi-generational companies here where they're doing things that their fathers and grandfathers never thought of doing. They're putting in R&D centers and innovation centers into their buildings. They're, rethinking the way that they go to market. They're thinking of new markets. They're thinking of ways they can drive efficiency on their shop floors. They're looking at robotics and automation. They're going on the digital journey. It's exciting. It's exciting to see these generational changes and to see companies continue to make investment in the future of manufacturing right here.
Yeah, right on. Well, listen, I personally very much appreciate the work you're doing. I'm excited that we have this role in Connecticut. I think it's one of our key advantages. So is there anything you'd like to say in signing off?
I think the best thing I can say is that the Office of Manufacturing here is here to support the manufacturing sector. Again, you're our customer. Let us know how we can help. We're here to help you in any way that we can. We want you to grow and thrive right here in the state of Connecticut. I've lived in this state all my life, Matt. I'm born here, raised here, went to high school here, went to college here, met my wife here, raised my kids here, still here. Longest I've been out of the state is for 2 weeks. Sad, I know, but as I sit here as your chief manufacturing officer, there's one thing that I know, and I know that deep, deep into my soul, and that's if you dream it here, you can make it here. Thank you.
That's awesome. All right. Appreciate you, Paul. It was an honor to talk to you, and maybe we'll get the chance to see you at one of our events.
Yeah, we'd love to. Excellent.
Okay.
Oh, thank you so much.
All right. I appreciate it.
All right, you bet. Take good care now.
All right.
Bye.
You too. Bye.